And let's talk about the win with our team. Luis Ortiz, Zach Tawatari, good to see you guys, as well as former Texan Seth Payne from Sports Radio 610. Seth, we are starting with the satisfaction survey. Zach will be your assistant tonight. So, Seth, how are you feeling after this one?
What's the top of the scale? Is it very? I can't even remember. I can't remember what it was like to be up at these heights.
It's
I'm starting
very,
to get dizzy.
very.
The altitude is very thin up here. I don't care. There's things that you should be concerned about after this win, and I sense a certain latent pessimism. This was a really good victory. This was an emphatic double-digit victory over a team that, yes, you should have beat. But the thing that I was most excited about today was that the defense created turnovers. 4 turnovers creates lopsided victories. We hadn't seen this out of the Texans. They'd only taken the ball 3 times. They'd only taken the ball away 3 times the entire season. They did it 4 times today. This was a very, very good sign by the Texans defense.
Seth, I love your optimism, but I'm going to have to go a step lower than that. I'm going to have to go with satisfied. This is a win the Texans should have had easily. Still seeing some leaks in the offense that I don't know if I trust completely, but overall, a really good game. Turnovers, great offense, good win.
Zach, I'm going to go with satisfied as well. I kind of touch on the same things right there. You know, I think this is a team that the Texans were supposed to beat. It was an expected victory, and we did see good things. The rushing, it was very good. Also, we did see CJ get sacked. Offensive line has to do a better job at that. I think because it was expected, I'm just satisfied.
All right. If you're LeBron James, you're very satisfied. Did you see that post on X, LeBron loving CJ Stroud? I'm going to say satisfied as well. I think there was a lot to like about this game, but there was that lull in the second quarter. And I think when you face better teams, that could be a problem. Joe Mixon did whatever he pleased in this one. Does Joe Mixon fix everything? We talked about it last week, and now that he's back, let's go to you, Seth. Let's ask that question again. Does Joe Mixon fix everything?
He fixes more than you might expect, and I can't quite explain it, but guys seem to block better for Joe Mixon. Maybe it's because they don't have to block for as long because his vision is so good and he hits the hole quickly, but they look like better blockers when Joe Mixon is in the game. It's like if you're going out with a girl who's way prettier and way out of your league, you're going to be on your best behavior. That's what these guys are all acting like Joe Mixon is the prettiest girl at the ball. Just take a look at his touchdown run. You'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm getting ahead of myself anyway. This is one game, but look, there were explosive plays in the run game. They didn't do it every single down. They had bad runs, but they're looking for explosive plays, and they were able to offer up 2 50-plus yard runs today with Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, is he the secret sauce for you guys?
I think that he does have a tremendous impact on this offense. I mean, look at last week. Joe Mixon had more yards by himself in this game rushing than the entire Texans unit in Week 5. So, yeah, I think stats like that speak for themselves. I realize he had a 59-yard run today that kind of helped pad that stat, but his physicality can't be overlooked. He's just a different guy compared to anybody else that the Texans have.
Yeah, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? When you have multiple games in which you struggle to run the ball, and then the only 2 games that you've had success running the ball has been thanks to Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
I think he's obviously the easy answer. He fixes everything for the Texans rushing attack. And also, I agree with Seth. It just seems like the offensive line seems to create those gaps, those opening spaces much easier when he's around.
And when we look at the scoreboard, 20-point win, it's against lowly New England. Is this win deceiving? I said earlier that I thought this game was expected, that the Texans should have dominated. But did they actually dominate? I think that's the big question. Was this win deceiving to you, Seth, when you try to break it down in all different areas of what this team does and what they did in this one?
Yeah, I understand the sentiment completely, and I think that you want a mollywomping where you're just running for 5 yards every single time you touch the ball. Dang it.
That's all right. That's okay. I'll start anyways, so I'll start over anyways.
All right.
What'd you do? Kick the cord out?
Yeah. It's a highly technical operation here.
That's okay. Here we go. I'm going to actually start with Luis on this one. So here we go. 5,
Okay, gotcha.
4. And when we look at that scoreboard, 20-point win, though it's against lowly New England. Is this win deceiving? Because Luis, last week, you said you wanted to see the Texans dominate someone. So did they dominate? Because I didn't feel like they dominated. I thought this win was expected, but they didn't dominate.
Well, I agree. I think it was expected. I think in the beginning of the game, the first quarter, they come out to a 14-0 lead. I was like, okay, this game, they might come out here and just blow out the Patriots. Then second quarter, they had that moment where everything just kind of went down low. DeMeco Ryan said after the game, it was kind of we let the foot off the gas. And then third quarter, they come out and they punch them right in the mouth, right to get going in the second half. For moments, I think they looked very well, but just for the sake of saying that the Patriots are the lowly Patriots, I don't think that, we can say, okay, this is the perfect Texans win.
Yeah, I think it was far from perfect. I think there's still some questions on offense. I was actually texting Seth about this at the start of the game. If you go back to that first drive, the first third down that they had, the call for a back shoulder fade to Tank Dell, if that was in fact the first option and if that's the, read CJ made. But I just don't understand play calling like that when you're rolling with these short, intermediate, underneath routes. And it just seems like they can do whatever they want on offense and then they get stalled by play calling seemingly like that, if that's what it was. It just seems like they don't keep their foot on the gas the entire time and put people away, because honestly, it could have been 28-0 in that first quarter.
Seth, we've proved to be tough graders over here, haven't we?
No, yeah, and I totally get it, and I understand, especially because the offense will go through these lulls where they have multiple failed series in a row. At least today it wasn't because of penalties for the most part, but the thing that I guess was most encouraging to me is that, yes, on a down-by-down basis, it didn't look like they should have won by 20 points. But the difference is that they did two things today that they haven't done before that are critical at some point versus good teams. Is one, you've got to be able to run the ball when you have to run the ball and get explosive plays in the run game. They hadn't really demonstrated an ability to do that since the Indianapolis game. And the other was they forced a bunch of turnovers. At the end of the day, it was a +3 turnover margin. That's the biggest reason for the difference. The offense had some short fields that they took advantage of. So I was just excited to see those, not because the effort today was good enough to beat the Ravens or the Chiefs or whomever else, but that you showed more depth and more versatility in how you can win football games. So as an overall feeling at the end of this game, I felt like, okay, this team can do more than perhaps I thought they could before, even though it was just against the Patriots. And then, like I said at the end of the video, okay, and at some point Nico Collins is coming back. Fingers crossed, knocking on wood, supposedly, maybe, Nico Collins is coming back.
Well, since Zach mentioned that he has the privilege of texting you during the game, I'm going to talk about a text that you and I had. Were you not really enthused by the defensive secondary in this one?
I was. Well, I was concerned about who was out there playing. I mean, I think they missed Kamari Lassiter. I think not having Jimmy Ward out there at times, as excited as we are about Kalen Bullock, there's times where Jimmy Ward's veteran savvy could have helped on some of the longer plays. So it's not that I was displeased with the secondary. I expected them to struggle a bit in this game, but they're going against less than scary wide receivers. If Kamari Lassiter never came back, if Jimmy Ward stayed injured, I'd be really nervous about going up against a better quarterback and better wide receivers. For today, I thought it was okay, but yeah, the health would be a concern if they continue to have problems like this.
And the name Dameon Pierce has come up, obviously. Did he benefit from Joe Mixon's return, or is this simply a game where he turned the corner?
I think that I don't want to read too much into one game, and he looked good in the several carries that he had in week one. But I thought there was a different burst and maybe a different decisiveness than we'd seen out of Dameon Pierce in the preseason. I was very pessimistic about Dameon Pierce's potential during training camp from what I'd seen of him. This looked really good. And, Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans were steadfastly in Dameon Pierce's corner during training camp. And this is evidence that they should have been.
Yeah, actually, for me, I think Dameon Pierce did have moments where he showed some improvement. So I think it could be a game where, okay, it seems like he's learning from Joe Mixon, but I don't want to be negative and take away from him, though. But look at his numbers. He had 8 carries. I think they may be a little bit skewed just because he had that one long run, 54 yards. Aside from that, in total, the other 7 carries, he only gathered 22 yards in total. So I think if we were to see just those numbers, we'd be like, okay, this is the same Dameon Pierce from before.
I don't know if we'll ever see the same Dameon Pierce as before, but...
Yeah, cautiously optimistic for me. I think that the Texans did a better job blocking on the edges today. I think that Dalton Schultz had a huge block on that 54-yard run, was it, that Pierce had? So cautiously optimistic. He did look a little bit more physical, but this is one game. We're going to have to see.
All right, so there is the talk about Sunday, and now we look ahead to Green Bay, and Seth is staying with us. We'll have that when we return on Sports Extra. Back on Sports Extra, and now this question. If the Texans play like they did Sunday against New England, will they beat the Green Bay Packers? We have the whiteboards out, and Seth will be the judge and jury as the three of us. Yes or no? It is that simple. Yes or no? Will the Texans beat the Green Bay Packers if they play like they did on Sunday? Who's going first? I see you're ready. Go ahead, Luis.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Why?
Well, I think when you get 3 turnovers or more, it's
Okay.
a very good indication that you're doing a good job, and it's a good indication that you're probably going to win the game. Plus, you saw pretty much, again, not a complete game, but you saw glimpses of what could be a complete game from the Texans.
Zach?
2 yeses for me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because this team has only gotten better every week. And I think they're going to get even better in week 7, and hopefully they'll continue to get better as the rest of this season goes on. But they are nowhere near their ceiling, in my opinion. So, yes, they keep improving. They're a better team than Green Bay. I think they win that game.
I said no. I said no. CJ started off on a heater, but the offense seemed to flatline a little bit at times in that second quarter, and I'm a bit worried about that. Yes, if you get the turnovers and the sacks and you limit your penalties, I think you have a very good chance of winning, but I'm a little bit worried that the Texans would be able to put 2 games like this together in a row. So, Seth, what are you thinking?
Okay, so it was 2-1, so math is against me, but I feel like I need to give it to the yeses just because Luis brought up the turnover point. So regardless of how the secondary and how some of the things concern me today, the turnovers, if they can force turnovers in droves like that, it's really hard to lose a football game when you're +3 in the turnover ratio. Just the Texans managed to damn it.
Sorry,
I was going to bring up a David Culley point, but never mind. You want to just start that all over?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right. This is tough because the math is against me. I want to give it to Zach and Luis based on Luis's bringing up of the turnovers. Look, regardless of my concerns about the secondary and how banged up they are, regardless of the issues they had versus blitz pickup today, the fact of the matter is if you force 4 turnovers, you're probably going to win that football game as long as you only turn the ball over once on offense. That's what happened today. If this Texans defense remains as opportunistic as they were today, they'll win a lot of squeakers that maybe they didn't quite deserve to win, and that could very well be the case. But I think right now the Texans are a 2.5-point underdog on the road. Vegas thinks these teams are pretty much equal, so a lot of it is going to come down to turnovers than just specifically the play of C.J. Stroud versus Jordan Love.
No doubt. I felt like I needed to be different. A lot of pressure. All right, he is Seth Payne, the former Texan from Sports Radio 610. Seth, as always, thanks for joining us on Sports Extra.
My pleasure, guys.